Hey there, and welcome to this explainer. Look, if you're trying to figure out the, frankly, baffling world of human relationships, you're in exactly the right place today. We're going to take a really deep dive into the hidden and honestly fascinating world of avoidant attachment. We'll be using an iceberg model for this. Basically, that means we're not just going to look at what's happening up on the surface, we are diving deep under the water to reveal what is actually going on in their subconscious mind.
So, let's start with a question that brings up a ton of real pain. Why do they pull away just when you get close? You're probably dealing with the incredibly confusing reality of a partner who suddenly goes totally cold. One day they are loving, they're present, they're totally invested in you, and then, seemingly out of nowhere, it's like a switch just flips. They become distant, completely unreachable, and you are just left standing there wondering what on earth went wrong.
So here is our roadmap for today. First, we'll define the avoidant attachment style. Second, we'll look at exactly why they pull away. Third, we uncover the avoidant's secret mindset. Fourth, we'll tackle the anxious avoidant doom loop. And finally, number 5, we'll talk about breaking that cycle.
All right, let's jump right into part 1, the avoidant attachment style.
So what are we actually talking about here? Avoidant attachment encompasses both dismissive and fearful types. And the absolute key takeaway is that this is almost always rooted in childhood emotional neglect. Maybe they had food and shelter, right? But their emotional needs, totally unmet. They often grew up with conditional love, where expressing how they felt was discouraged, or worse, actually punished. Because of that, they were quite literally forced to learn emotional suppression. It was a coping mechanism they had to develop just to survive. They learned from a very young age that relying on other people is fundamentally unsafe.
And according to insights from Psych2Go, this avoidance usually shows up through 8 visible signs. You'll see chronic emotional suppression, a real inability to deal with emotional intimacy, and this strong tendency to keep relationships at a very safe, shallow level. You're also going to notice extreme, rigid boundaries and a hyper-focused independence. Now, on the surface, they might just seem cold or self-absorbed or fiercely independent. But actually, that hyper-independence is a massive defense mechanism. It's a heavy shield designed to mask a really deep subconscious wound, this lingering feeling of being defective or unlovable.
Moving right along to section 2, why they pull away.
Think about this crazy paradox for a second. Why do these triggers usually happen right when things seem to be going incredibly well? To get that, we need to look at the relationship timeline. Step 1 is the shared fantasy. In the early honeymoon phase, their brain is just flooded with dopamine, and that beautifully masks all their underlying fears. It's actually easy for them to be present. But then step 2 hits. True intimacy develops. As you start crossing normal relationship milestones, their nervous system literally ties you to their childhood wounds. To them, real intimacy signals danger, shame, and potential rejection, which inevitably triggers step 3, the sudden pull away. They abruptly end that shared fantasy and create distance. Why? Because to their nervous system, distance equals safety.
Let's break down what actually sets off those alarm bells. To an avoidant, closeness literally feels like being controlled or engulfed. They completely lack a model for healthy emotional co-regulation, meaning your emotions might genuinely overwhelm them. Intimacy brings up those old painful wounds of exposure and shame. Plus, they are practically addicted to freedom, because autonomy is the only thing that's ever kept them safe. They're often totally disconnected from their own bodily sensations, and they equate peace strictly with emotional distance. Finally, you've got the grass is greener syndrome. Especially for fearful avoidants, falling in love is really bittersweet. They desperately crave connection, but they are terrified of it at the same time. So they sabotage things. They'll start finding tiny flaws or idealizing some imaginary perfect partner out there, entirely to protect themselves from having to commit.
Okay, part 3. The avoidant's secret mindset. We're going under the iceberg now. Here are the 5 core beliefs of an avoidant, sourced directly from the confessions of someone in recovery for this exact attachment style. Number 1, if I get close, I'll lose myself. 2, if I commit, I'll be trapped. 3, my needs aren't welcome here. 4, I can't trust love to last. And 5, vulnerability equals weakness. I mean, when you hear those, it makes total sense why relationships feel like dangerous quicksand to them, right? To keep from drowning, they guard their hearts. They stay in the shallow end, and they keep you firmly at arm's length. Now, what happens during a breakup or a no-contact phase? It is a mind-bending paradox. On the surface, you are getting complete silence, but secretly, they're hoping you'll reach out to prove you actually care.
They look like they're just happily moving on independently, but they secretly want you to loyally hold emotional space for them. They project pure indifference, yet they're hoping you will chase them to prove their own deep feelings of unworthiness wrong. They seem perfectly calm and detached, while privately they're dissecting your old texts for any sign of clarity. They act like they expect nothing from you, but they're actually hoping you evolve to become less needy. You see, their outer silence is absolutely not indifference. It is a private, swirling storm of self-protection and hidden hopes that you just won't give up on them.
I just want you to let this quote sink in for a second. Deep down, they hope your love will translate their emotional avoidance into compassion, that you'll know their distance isn't rejection, it's fear. It's incredibly poignant. This hidden fantasy reveals the deeply wounded inner child hiding right behind those massive, imposing walls.
Which brings us to part 4, the anxious avoidant doom loop.
Now that we have a solid grip on their mindset, we gotta shift the focus back to you. Let's look at how these two very different nervous system responses clash. On one side, we have the anxious reaction. When they pull away, your instinct might be to chase for connection. You send those long emotional paragraphs, or maybe try to fake detachment to win them back. And on the other side, the avoidant reaction. They feel completely suffocated. They experience your desire for closeness as a stressful, heavy demand, so they shut down even further and retreat to isolation. Chasing someone who fundamentally fears being engulfed perfectly fuels this doom loop. It's just a self-perpetuating cycle of fear and pain for both of you.
So here is the harsh but absolutely crucial truth. You cannot fix their fear from a place of your own fear. You literally have to address your own fear of abandonment first. Trying to love them back into health, over-explaining yourself, or trying to fix them, that isn't actually secure love. It's a form of anxious survival pacing. You are trying to manage their nervous system because deep down, you are terrified of losing the connection.
All right, let's fix this. Part 5, breaking the cycle.
It is time to step off this exhausting roller coaster for good. Here is your playbook of healthy, secure actions. First, regulate your own nervous system. You've got to calm your own panic before you even try to engage. Second, validate their experience without betraying your own needs. You can absolutely acknowledge that they need space while still honoring your own need for connection. Third, establish emotional agreements rather than just giving them endless open-ended space. Ask to reconnect at a specific time. And fourth, hold clear boundaries. True security means communicating your limits nicely, but very clearly. It sounds something like, hey, I understand you need space right now, but I need communication to feel safe in a relationship.
Let's be crystal clear on what a boundary actually is too. A boundary is a focus on what you can control and the limits of what you will tolerate. It is not an ultimatum to try and control your partner's behavior. Now, fair warning here, emotionally unavailable people often struggle immensely when you set boundaries. Asking for accountability triggers their deepest core wound of shame, and that might cause them to just run entirely. But listen, if they run because you held a healthy boundary, that boundary is just doing its job of protecting you.
Furthermore, if an avoidant partner does come back during a period of no contact, be careful. Apologies do not cure deep attachment wounds. Just saying I'm sorry doesn't magically rewire a human nervous system. If you just accept an apology without seeing a radical commitment to doing the real inner work, like going to therapy or coaching, alongside consistent, noticeable behavioral change, it's just going to lead you right back into the exact same painful pull away down the road.
And that brings us to our final, powerful realization for today. Your boundaries will prevent you from self-abandoning. Look, walking away is sometimes the most loving, secure action you can possibly take for yourself. So I'll leave you with this question. Are you ready to stop shrinking to make someone else comfortable and finally reclaim your own peace? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, and I will see you next time.